Hello and welcome to Geek History Lesson. I am Jason Justice Inman. This is the podcast where we talk about one character of pop culture or a team or a movie, but today we are not doing that. You'll also notice that Ashley Victoria Robinson is not here because we have an even specialer guest than Ashley. I'm not putting Ashley down at any point. I'm actually bringing her up. I'm saying that she is just as special as the guest I have today. Well, we have done over 200 episodes. We're up in the lexicon of Geek History Lesson. I can't talk right now because my special guest is staring me down right now, and this is becoming overwhelming, but it's okay. All I'm saying is that we are around the 4-year anniversary of Geek History Lesson, and there is one person in Geek History Lesson history, pop culture history, that we have not done, and that is myself. This is the Geek History Lesson on me, and I thought that there is no better expert on myself than my own mother, Bernadette Inman. Welcome to Geek History Lesson, Bernadette Inman. It's weird to introduce you like that, by the way. It is very weird. Now, I have to ask you this because I know you have listened to episodes of this podcast.
Yeah.
How does it feel to actually be on the podcast?
It's kind of weird.
Yeah?
Yeah.
It's not as impressive a setup as now that you're here, right?
Oh, no, don't tell listeners that. No, it's very impressive studio. Yeah.
We used to record in the closet just for the first 100 episodes.
Okay, then you've moved up.
We have moved up, yeah, slightly. So I thought, you've listened to these. You've listened to our show.
Yes, I have.
You know what it's
Many
like.
times we've listened to
Do you
your
have
show.
a favorite episode? Is there one that you can remember?
I like the episodes that are about movies or characters that I know.
So not many of the superhero movies.
Because I'm not a real superhero person.
Yeah.
But, what's the character with Jack?
With the character with
24
Jack. 24.
Yeah, 24.
Jack
I
Bauer.
like that. Yeah.
That was a long time ago.
Yeah, it was.
Wow.
Yeah,
All
and
right.
some of the James Bond ones, and I like those.
Oh,
I
cool.
like the shows or characters that I know.
So just really quickly, let's do a brief 10-cent origin on you, just so listeners know where you are. Where do you currently live?
I live in a very little town called Stark, Kansas.
Yes, that has been mentioned on this podcast several times. And you currently live there right now.
Right.
So it's like in the southeast corner of Kansas.
Right. Yeah.
And what would you currently say is your occupation?
Gosh, I hate to say the word housewife, but
I mean, there's nothing wrong with that.
yeah.
I mean, you've been a
But
housewife.
right now I'm not working, so I'm at home.
Yeah, you're a housewife. You've been a housewife my entire life, or
Well,
most
I have
of growing
worked.
up. Yeah.
Yeah.
You've also worked.
Yeah, and I've also worked on the farm.
So, yeah.
So
Why would you say that? Like farmhand, farm mom, farm mother,
farm wife.
farm wife. Is that an appropriate title?
That's a good title.
Okay.
I like that.
Let's say so your occupation is farm wife.
Yeah.
Do you have any special skills that I don't know about?
Oh, I have many, many special
Like any
skills.
martial arts training?
That is my secret.
Oh, damn. Okay. That's a good answer. All right. I like that. All right. So before we get into, I have a series of questions that I want to ask you about my early childhood to let you and myself and the listeners know a little bit about me, because this is a Geek History Lesson on me, but it's more about, I think if anybody gets an opportunity to record themselves asking questions to their mother, I think they should totally do it. To be honest with you, I am sort of plagiarizing this idea from Kevin Smith, who did this with his own mother, and I think it's really cool. So this recording will be saved for the eternity of time.
You can show it to your grandchildren.
I can if I have grandchildren.
Well, if you have.
We'll see.
My grandchildren.
Yes, your grandchildren, not my grandchildren, your grandchildren.
Yeah.
So there you go. So first off, I want to ask you a question about you before we get to talking about me.
Okay.
When you were growing up, would you have ever considered yourself a nerd? Were you a nerd? Did you like any nerdy things while you were growing up?
Well, nerd wasn't a term we used back then.
Mm-hmm.
I loved books. That's what I loved.
Yeah.
I could spend hours.
And you've always read.
I've always read. That's my escape. That I could read. Yeah.
Do you have a favorite genre of books?
Not particularly.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. I don't necessarily well, some mysteries I like, but not all of them.
Mm-hmm. But you're not a fan of science fiction books.
Some science fiction I'll read, but not all of them.
Do you have any particular ones that you can remember off the top of your head that you like? Was there a science fiction novel that you really enjoyed?
I can't think of anything.
All right, it's fine. It's all good. There's no bar of perfection.
But I did like Ready Player One. I did enjoy that book.
Yeah, it's a good book.
Yeah.
By Ernest Cline.
Yeah, I like that book.
All right. So that's a pretty modern one. But
But an old one, no, I don't know.
So reading books. Now, when you were growing up, and you were growing up in, because I do not want to give your age away on the podcast because that's not polite for a lady. You were growing up in the 60s and 70s, correct?
Yeah.
Okay. Were a lot of kids reading books at that time, or were you unique in that fact from what you remember from growing up?
Some did and some not, just kind of like now, in the little town that we lived in. I mean, there was a library, and it was, for some kids, that's where you went every Saturday to get a new pile of books to read.
What started you off? Why did you start reading?
I don't really know.
Was it your mother? Or did she read to you a lot?
No, I can't remember my mother really reading a book. Mm-hmm. I don't even remember my mother reading storybooks like you do to little kids.
Would you read the newspaper?
I don't even know. Well, we would get the Sunday paper.
Yeah.
But I think I can remember my mother taking me to the library because there was a couple of, at that time they would have called them, I don't think they were married and they were sisters and they lived together.
Yeah.
And she knew them and she liked them. And so, I would have to say it's my mother that first took me to a public library and she did introduce, and she never had a problem. I mean, you could go and curl up in a chair and read for hours. She didn't care.
And she didn't care.
Yeah.
That's awesome. I like that. All right, cool. All right, so let's now move on to myself. From my childhood, because if there's one thing on this podcast I have proven, I obsess about several different sort of stories, characters, things that I obsess about. Is there a nerdy thing that you remember from my childhood as being like one of the first things that I obsessed about, that I wanted to collect, I wanted to read, wanted to watch? Does any property or book or movie stand out to you?
Skeletor.
Oh,
yes.
So He-Man and the Masters of the Universe.
Right.
Why Skeletor over He-Man? Did I like Skeletor better?
No, you liked both those characters.
Okay.
But it was on like every afternoon. Mm-hmm. And you were kind of fixated to the television for that. And I think that was probably the first two like characters that you wanted.
Mm-hmm. I remember because Skeletor and He-Man, they each had the half of the same sword, and then when you combine them, it became some sort of power sword. And I can remember I had that sword, and you had the two pieces because if you pulled them apart, you could fight people with them. And I remember also that I had He-Man's battle cat, his giant green tiger.
Yes, you did.
That he rode around everywhere.
You did. But that was the first thing that, you had to watch that cartoon every day.
Wow, yeah. I didn't realize it was ever on every day.
It was on every afternoon, and you were probably only about 4 when it came on.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's not a bad choice. It's funny because I've kind of fallen away from my love of He-Man. Whatever.
You liked He-Man. That was probably your first
obsession.
Yeah.
Is there another one that you can remember popping up?
Well, you liked Ghostbusters a lot. Mm-hmm. You really liked Ghostbusters. You liked the movies. You had all the...
I was obsessed with the cartoon, which was the real Ghostbusters is what they called it.
Okay.
Yeah.
But I remember that's one of the, we didn't go to a lot of movies, but we went to see that movie.
Did we see? Now, I remember seeing, and tell me if I'm incorrect, I remember we saw Ghostbusters 2, not 1, in the theaters.
You might be right. We might have waited until that was on video.
Yeah, because I don't know. I remember seeing Ghostbusters 2 because I remember seeing them slime up the Statue of Liberty in the movie theaters. And I want to say that we went and saw that with our Aunt Barbara.
Yeah, I think you did.
Which is the whole reason probably why we went and saw movies.
Yeah, because she was always good about taking one. Yeah, let's take the kids to the movies. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Yeah, because we saw my first movie ever with her in Lawrence, Kansas, which was Bambi. Yeah. Which was Bambi ever. And I believe my second movie ever was The Land Before Time, which was in Parsons, Kansas.
Yes, because we might have even gone for your birthday or something like that.
I don't know if we did for that one. I do know that we went for my birthday for Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles.
Okay.
I remember that was a birthday movie.
That probably was.
Yeah. But I also remember the same summer of... it might not have been the same summer, but the same summer as Ghostbusters 2, I think we also saw Batman in the movie theaters because that's the same year, if I remember right. I don't know.
I don't know.
People on the internet, if we're wrong about that, will tweet us right now. We got the dates wrong. It's all good. Oh, that's interesting. All right. I did not. I remember Ghostbusters 2, but I don't remember Ghostbusters 1. And I remember Ghostbusters. I had the Proton Pack. And I remember
you did.
Yep, and it had a little piece of bad foam that went out of it, and it had a little trigger. And
yeah. But you had the ambulance.
Yeah, I had their car.
Yeah, and you took it apart, and then you couldn't get back together.
How did I take it apart? Did I take the?
You always took your toys apart.
Oh, really?
You took your toys apart. Yeah.
Oh, interesting.
And then you would come kind of, I can't put them back together. And most of the time it made me very frustrated that you take these. But your dad usually would get them
back together.
Yeah. And he'd say, well, it's not quite working right, but it's good enough,
It's funny because I am sure I have seen that car still in your house somewhere. And I think it works just fine. I think maybe the back door is off of it, but...
It is probably along with the Teenage Mutant Turtles, what do you call it, van?
Their van.
Yeah.
Their party van.
It's probably out in the shed somewhere.
Okay. Yeah, and for our listeners here, we have a shed outside the house where for a long time that was where basically, because I have a little brother, he moved into my room, and then all my stuff went out into the shed. So that's where it lived.
But you weren't living there at the time.
No, I didn't care. I didn't care. It was in a Rubbermaid. It's fine. It's all good. All right, so those were the first obsessions of mine. Do you remember when I first started collecting something? Was it comic books or... Did I mean, every kid collects rocks. I remember collecting rocks.
Yeah.
I do remember collecting stamps. And I also remember, or coins.
That's because your grandmother gave you coins.
Yes.
But the first thing, because it always made me, you collected pop cans for some reason.
Like Pepsi cans?
Yes, or Coke cans.
Did they have a design on them?
They must have had something special on them. And they were constantly falling down. Constantly. Yeah. And that always, and it was like, pick them up or throw them out.
I don't remember the Pepsi cans.
Oh, yeah. Because when I wanted you to throw them out, and you got very, very upset with me.
Yeah, because they're empty, of course, because I drank them.
They were empty, yes.
Pepsi was my drink of choice as a child.
But they must have had something special on them, is why you had to keep all these cans.
It's so interesting, because I do remember collecting the Pepsi cans or the Mountain Dew cans when Star Wars Episode 1 came out. I remember collecting some of those because I was like, oh, I want the Obi-Wan Kenobi one and I want this one. But before that, I don't remember collecting cans.
You don't remember that? You used to have them on your... yeah.
No, I don't. Wow.
Yeah.
I mean, I bet they got recycled. And,
Well, they eventually got thrown out.
Yes.
One way or the other.
Yeah. You didn't go make a nickel off of those?
No.
Right.
Well, I might have. I don't know. I don't remember.
Do you remember anything else like... Well, let's go straight into comic books. Do you remember, or from your perspective, do you remember what was the first comic book that
you wanted?
That I wanted, or I bought, or you can remember even me reading?
No, because there was such a lot of them.
Mm-hmm.
Is
that how from your perspective, that's what it was? There were just a lot of them?
There was a lot of them. There was not just one. You liked Superman, and then you liked this, or you liked that, and that's somehow or another, you always found out the new one that was being released, and...
That was thanks to Wizard Magazine.
Okay.
Which I subscribed to for quite a long time because we were so far away from comic book shops. This magazine would tell you everything that was happening in comic books. And it would sometimes, most of the time, half the reason I bought it was because they would spoil what happened in comic books. Oh. So by reading the one magazine, that's all I had to read. I didn't have to read all of comic books.
Yeah, but you still wanted to,
Oh, sure.
The comic book.
Yeah, because I still have, from my memory, the first comic book that I perceive that I ever bought.
Which one did you buy?
It's Batman 466.
Okay.
And I have it framed,
Where did you buy it at?
I remember buying it at a Walmart. Because I tell that story a lot.
Because I don't ever remember even Walmart having comic books.
They used to always have, at our local Walmart in Chanute, Kansas, they used to have... It was, if you were looking at all the checkout aisles, on the far left checkout aisle, they would have a single rack. And on that single rack, they had comic books. They didn't have a lot of comic books, but they had comic books. And then right next to that, they had baseball cards. And it was there for like a couple of years. And then that rack moved to the toy section. and then comic books were in the toys. And I think when they moved the toys, they put two. They had two racks back there in the toys, I guess because they figured it was far away from the people entering and out, entering and exiting the store, and they wouldn't look so embarrassing with having comics next to the checkout aisle. But I can remember buying that Batman from that Walmart.
So it was later on when the bookstore opened up next door.
Which that didn't happen until I think I was in junior high.
Yeah, you were older.
So this is, to let the listeners in, this is later on, there was a store that opened up right next to our local Walmart, and it was called On Cue. And it was sort of like an FYE sort of, it was more of a music store, but they had a whole section on the side that had books. And I remember when it first opened, they did not have single issues of comic books, but they had like graphic novels, which are the collected edition trades, like kind of look like real books in the back. And that's where I found Watchmen. That's where I found Dark Knight Returns. And then eventually they got a spinner rack of comics.
I remember the spinner rack.
Yes.
Because that's where I would have to go look for your list. You would say, Mom, you're going to Chanute, go find me this.
Yes. I by the way, I have told that story on this podcast several times. Okay, now... I remember doing that to you. There was probably a year where I probably had you go pick up comic books every month. And let me ask you, as a mother, did you enjoy doing that? Or were you like, this is a pain in the ass?
This is a pain in the ass.
Because I can even remember one time, and this had to have been in like 1995. I can remember in 1995, I sent you to get like an issue of Iron Man, and I specifically remember Iron Man. And then I remember I gave you some extra money, and I asked you to buy the VHS tape of Star Trek Generations because that came out that week. And I was very insistent because it had a holographic cover, and I was like, you have to get the holographic cover.
I know.
And I also remember on these lists that I would give you also buy. So I'd be like, okay, if you can't find this one, buy this one. If you can't find this one, buy this one.
You don't know how frustrating that was to try to go through those comic books and find the right number and the right...
So you would find the right number. You were specifically looking for the right number.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, it was my mission. It was my mission. I was out to please you. I don't know why,
It's fun. It's so funny. And I've told this story as well on the show that for most of my young comic book reading life, there are several storylines that I have complete gaps in. And it wasn't until much later in my life that I would go back and be like, oh, that's what happened in that issue.
Yeah.
Because, the Chanute, Kansas offerings of these comic books were not great. Yeah, but it was better than nothing.
It was limited. Yeah.
Yeah. Now, I can remember that we also went to a comic book shop in Pittsburgh, Kansas.
Oh, that grody place. Yeah.
Now, I cannot remember what the name of it was.
It was on Broadway.
Manhattan Comics or something like that.
I don't know, but it was a nest.
The only reason I knew about it was because outside their building was a giant Spider-Man. And I think that's why I asked you to stop there. And once I discovered that place, we had to stop in there every time. Now, you say it's grody. I do remember it being very, very dusty, full of long boxes, and just not very well cleaned. But to me, it was nirvana because it had comic books that I'd never seen before.
Yeah, but see, I thought you were too young to go in there by yourself at the time. And then, Katie your little sister, wasn't very... So I had to take her in there and keep her entertained while you would want to spend an hour in there going through everything.
Yeah.
And... and I remember the bathroom. Oh, my gosh, it was filthy.
I didn't even know that place had a bathroom.
Oh, yeah. Well, you have a little sister.
Yes, of course.
Yeah. Oh, it was a nasty
Well, that place wasn't open for very long. I remember it shut down pretty quickly. Yeah. So let me ask you this. You're a reader, but you're not a reader of comic books. And then you have a child like me who suddenly becomes obsessed with comic books, asks you to go pick them up. What did you think at the time? What did you think about comic books? How did you perceive them?
First of all, they weren't serious reading.
To you?
Yeah,
okay.
Not at all. They were more pictures than words. Mm-hmm. And it was like, is he really reading when he's reading comic books? But you always like to read. Mm-hmm. So, yeah, to me, they were not serious reading. It was not... But that's the way you grew up. Mm-hmm. I mean...
I can remember you saying to me one time, though, that you did say that. You were like, well, at least he's reading, or at least you're reading.
Yeah.
I can remember you saying that specifically to me about comic books.
So I guess it was the point that as long as you were reading, it was okay.
Yeah. All right. But there was never any. Was there any ever thoughts every once in a while about trying to wean me off comic books or do anything like that?
Because that was something you enjoyed doing. Mm-hmm. So no.
Well, because I've heard stories before of parents that have thrown kids' comic book collections out the door.
No. My gosh, I didn't even throw your old copies of Reader. Oh, what? No, Readers.
No, TV Guide. I kept.
Oh my gosh, yeah. Why would you keep TV Guide?
Well, I'll tell you why to you and the listeners, because they had pictures of Star Trek characters on them. Look, I had a TV Guide with Captain Sisko on it, and I was not getting rid of that. So,
but you kept every copy.
Yeah. Did I for a while?
Oh, yes.
Oh, did I? Oh, interesting. Yes. I don't remember that.
That was your favorite gift from Grandma.
My grandmother gifted me with a subscription of TV Guide, yes. Yeah. Which we did not have cable, so I don't know why I was obsessed with TV Guide. We only had 3 channels, so I don't know why I needed TV Guide to look through the channels.
But she bought it for you, and you kept every issue, and you did not get rid of it.
I see. I don't remember keeping every issue. I remember...
No, you had boxes of those when you finally threw them out.
All right, so let's go down a different rabbit hole. Do you remember one of the first kind of nerdy / superhero characters that I ever dressed up as?
Probably Batman.
I can remember Batman.
I think Batman was probably, because I can remember the cape. Mm-hmm. And I don't know if you had the whole...
No, I didn't. So I will tell you this. I can remember that Halloween being very agitated at you because you, and as a little kid would be, that you only bought me the domino mask, and I didn't think I was Batman because I didn't have the ears. I didn't have the cowl.
Sure, later on that I didn't make you one out of a sweatshirt or anything? No,
you never. So I had a Batman sweatshirt and I had black sweatpants, and then I had the cape that you made. I think you bought like a normal black cape and then you cut the little triangles in it. But no, I only ever had a domino mask. I never had a bat cowl.
Wow.
Yeah.
You got over it.
I moved on. So let me ask you this. When I was a kid, I don't know why I said I was about to say when I was a cat. I've never been a cat. When I was a kid, do you ever remember me talking about what I wanted to be when I grew up?
You know what the first thing you ever said you wanted to be?
What did I say?
I want to be a truck driver.
Okay.
And you wanted to have milk cows, like your grandparents had a dairy farm. And I believe I said, well, if you're driving a truck all the time, a semi-truck,
yes,
who's going to milk the cows? And you very calmly looked at me and said, you can do it, Mom.
I was already outsourcing the labor.
Yes, you were. And I don't imagine you were going to pay me very much.
I probably would have just paid you in milk. I'd have been like, look, you get all this milk. What an awesome gig, Mom.
But that's the first thing you ever said you wanted to be.
Interesting. I do not remember that, but that makes sense since my father... was a truck driver for a very long time.
Yeah.
Do you remember it turning into anything else? See, because I remember
to be.
Yeah, I remember astronaut, and then I also remember comic book artist for a long time.
I always thought you wanted to be a comic book artist all through high school because you were always drawing. Mm-hmm. That's what I figured, that you would have to go into something
like illustration or graphic design, something like that. Yeah.
Something involving art. Mm-hmm. That's what I always figured you'd be.
Are you disappointed that I didn't?
No.
All right.
You can be whatever you want to be.
That's a fair-minded parent. I appreciate that. Now, let me ask you this. Are you surprised or not surprised by what I'm doing now?
No.
Okay, why is that?
Because you're the kid that was born saying, ta-da, look at me.
Okay.
Yeah. Maybe that had something to do with being the middle child. Mm-hmm. But no, you were. You were always, look at me, look at me, look at me.
So you feel as long as I was in entertainment, that sort of fills that need.
For you, yeah, I do.
Yeah.
You like that. And I think part of it probably came from being the middle child, and, that you had an older sister and
and 2 older brothers as well.
Yeah, and a little sister, you were thought you were the forgotten one. But you always had a phenomenal memory. And you were a storyteller from the very beginning, too. Mm-hmm. I can remember times, and cooking dinner. Mm-hmm. And you would have read something
Yes.
that I could care less about, and you standing there in the kitchen almost telling me word for word for word about
The
this.
article or the
and
story.
all I had to do was go, oh, wow, that's good.
I really wonder what boring stories I told you.
I don't know, but
Let me tell you, Mom, about the stock market.
And I would, no, it would be something that you read. Now, I don't know
okay.
whether it was a comic book story or...
Let me tell you about my teacher is an alien. Here we go.
No, it was always some story, but you would almost word for word, line
Just
to
tell you
line.
the story.
Tell me the story. Because you found it so fascinating, so you knew that I would be fascinated too.
You never were.
No.
Did I ever turn you to my side?
No, yeah, I did not go over to the dark side. No.
I was hoping at least one.
But you can always talk, so I'm not surprised you're doing this at all.
Yeah, doing like...
You were always a talker.
Sorry. Were you a talker when you were a kid?
No.
No. Are you? What would you classify yourself as? Introvert? Maybe?
Shy?
Shy? Okay.
Yeah.
So let me ask you this. Did it bother you that you had a child that was, let's just say it, a loudmouth?
When we were
You can be honest here. It's all good.
No,
This is a safe space.
It was like long before you started school.
Yeah.
We'd be waiting in line, to pay at the drugstore.
Mm-hmm.
There was some little kid that was about your size, usually a little boy.
Mm-hmm.
You'd walk up to him and say, "Hi, I'm Jason. I live in Stark. I like He-Man. Do you like He-Man?" Ba 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 ba.
You just described every episode of Geek History Lesson. I'm just telling you that right now.
And these kids, some of them, would just back up. Like, who is this weirdo?
Who is this guy?
And I just let you talk.
Yeah.
The one time that I couldn't get a babysitter when I had to cut my hair, a lot of women in there.
And how old was I?
Oh, before school.
Okay.
Before school.
So under 5.
Yeah, under 5. And you just talked constantly to these women. I have no idea what you told them, but they listened to you. And I remember every one of them said, "That child's going to be a politician the way he talks."
Why is it this? Because somebody talks a lot, it's automatically a politician.
I don't know.
That's interesting.
But you never had a shy bone in your body.
I developed some shy bones here and there. I think naturally, as most people do.
Yeah, but not when you were young.
Okay, so we went through my list of questions.
Okay.
Is there any stories that you think the Geek History Lesson listeners need to hear, like about me or about any of the adventures we've had, or I guess any more of these weird stock market articles or like science fiction warp engine tech? I probably gave you the complete schematics to the USS Enterprise and didn't realize it.
Probably did.
Yeah.
You told me lots of stories as I was fixing dinner.
Yeah.
I couldn't tell you one of them.
Well, I'm glad that was time well spent.
But, as I said.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, but at dinner time, other people have your attention too,
Yeah.
But you would stand there in the kitchen by the sink as I was stirring something on the stove.
Yeah.
Telling me stories.
Well, it works.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't know. Yeah.
You never realized the difference, so
No, I guess I don't care. I guess maybe that's why I'm in podcasting
you were talking,
now.
Yeah.
I don't need to know the person's there listening. I'm just there. You're listening.
Talk.
You're listening.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Other than that,
I sound like a real arrogant son of a bitch, don't I? And I mean no offense with that statement. I just realized that I'm going to probably get some tweets about that. So I apologize, Mom.
Oh, no. I thought it was always kind of fun. I mean, as I said, as long as they said, okay.
Yeah.
That's good. You were fine.
Yeah. Now, compared to your other children, and you don't have to go into any other details about any of my siblings, because I'm not forcing them to be on this podcast. I'm not even forcing you to be on this podcast. I literally asked and you jumped on the opportunity.
Yeah, I volunteered. I thought it'd be fun.
I think, again, this is a great way to, celebrate the 4th year of our podcast, the 4th year anniversary. Did I tell stories to the other siblings as well? Did I just tell them entire...
I don't think they probably walked away. I was your captive on it.
You're locked
only
at the
because
stove.
I was at the stove trying to cook. I can't leave the pot, know?
All right, here's a question for you. Of my many childhood obsessions, Ghostbusters, He-Man, Star Trek, superheroes, comic books, what have you, what is the one that you enjoy the most or could at least stand to watch And then I'm going to ask you the least one. But I want to hear the one that you could sort of be like, well, that's not so bad. Or that one, at least that one I could watch and I wouldn't groan inwardly with everything that happened.
Some of the Star Wars were okay.
The Star Wars movies or Star Trek?
Well, there was only one Star Trek movie I liked.
Yes. Which one is that?
The one with the whales.
Oh, Star Trek 4.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The rest of them, I could care less.
Yeah. And did you? I watched a lot of Star Trek: The Next Generation. Now, did you like that show, or because there was a time when that show
was on every day?
It was on every day.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, yeah, I could watch that.
Mm-hmm. But you like Star Wars?
Yeah. Star Wars were
Because we watched a lot of the original trilogy.
Yeah.
I remember
because we had those movies.
Yeah. Well, it was at the time there was the only ones they had.
A lot of times I have to have you explain them to me.
Yes.
Yeah.
I still tell the story to this day. This is a very specific reference. So in Star Trek: The Next Generation's final episode called All Good Things, they show this future timeline. And in the future timeline, Deanna dies. Deanna Troi is dead. And it creates a feud between Worf and Riker. And I can remember when we would start watching some of the TNG movies, like First Contact and Generations, I can remember you asking me, well, how is Deanna alive? She was dead. And I could not, for the life of you, get you to understand that's an alternate timeline. They fixed it. Deanna's just fine.
Okay.
Like that timeline, that future never happened.
See, alternative timelines I don't get. There is one timeline that I am on.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, if you believe the multiverse theory, that's, not true. But I that's a specific, I remember like watching the Star Trek Generations, you'd be like, why is Deanna here? She's dead. And I'm like, no. That's not right. So interesting. Okay. So what was the one that you could not stand? What's the one that you hated? Like, was there a comic book? Was it He-Man, Ghostbusters? I'm trying to think of some other things that I might have watched that you just did not like.
I don't remember.
Or any cartoons that really annoyed you? And the reason I say that is because my little brother, and I don't know the name of it, you probably will, watched this cartoon where human faces were put on talking planes. And it was like JJ the Airplane?
Yeah, the jet plane or something.
I could not stand that show at all.
That's a creepy show.
It's a really weird, creepy show.
Yeah.
So is there something like that for me that you could remember? Like, did you like He-Man? Because
yeah, I didn't really like He-Man.
I can't imagine He-Man's the best of shows.
No, I never got He-Man.
Okay.
Yeah, I don't even think the animation was probably very good in that show.
No, I can't imagine any of the 80s shows it was that great. It's funny. Fun fact, Real Ghostbusters, which was the cartoon I watched, popped up on Netflix. And so I did put on an episode just to look at it. And yeah, the animation is not great. It's still a good show. Not great. I think we've come to the end of it. That's all. Is there anything you feel I should ask you or anything you want to impart to the listeners? I mean, you've now stepped the divide. You went from fan to co-host of the show.
Oh, wow.
You got a hell of a promotion here.
I did. How much do I get paid?
Podcasting pays you nothing because this is free.
Oh, well, shoot.
Yeah.
Okay.
So, all right. Well, there you go. Well, Mom, Bernadette, thank you so much for being on the show. You're not on social media, are you?
No.
Okay, because this is normally the point of the episode where I would have people pimp their social media, but that's okay. You're probably better than all of us.
That's right. Don't contact me, please.
Contact her nowhere. All right. Thank you so much for being on the show.
You're welcome. I had fun.
So, Ashley, I might be a little biased, but I think that might be the greatest guest we've ever had on Geek History Lesson.
I mean, I'm pretty partial to her as well. I think she did great.
Oh, that's good. As I said in the beginning of this episode, I said Ashley wasn't here, but she's here.
Hey!
Because we are Ashley. I said this wrong in the episode when I was talking to my mom. I actually said it was our 4-year anniversary. That's incorrect. This is our 5th year anniversary of doing the podcast. 5 years of doing the podcast of Geek History Lesson. So it was wrong just to not have you in this episode. So I'm glad you're back.
Oh, thank you for having me back. Yeah.
What do you think? Did you think we were doing this 5 years ago? Did you think we were going to be doing this podcast?
I hope so. I really did. I mean, I never want to undertake anything with the assumption that it won't be as successful as possible. And the cool thing about podcasts is you can just keep going until you die.
That's right. Well, I thought we could talk about real quick here. We have a big announcement coming about a change to Geek History Lesson. It's a good change, everybody. But I wanted to talk about some of our favorite moments of Geek History Lesson. Now, I want to start this off with, you once told me the story about getting into a lift, and just tell the listeners.
This was many moons ago when I used to make perfume and such things for a company that I won't name on the air.
They did not sponsor us.
They did not, have never, probably will never, I'm going to assume. And I was taking a lift back from there, and I got into the car, and the sharply dressed African-American gentleman was listening to our Loki episode. That's a very early episode if you're a newer GHL. That's like episode 4 or
I don't remember.
something.
That was 5 years ago.
It was when I was still making my notes by hand, which was a mistake.
I remember when you did that, and I was like, why?
Yeah, well, because I really like writing things out by hand.
Yeah.
So he was listening to Loki, so that was like kind of weird. And then he sent me a really nice Facebook message after that he realized that I was the same person that he was listening to. So Lyft driver, if you're still listening 5 years later, shout out to you. I hope you're not still driving for Lyft unless you love it. Then I hope you are.
Yeah. Some of my favorite moments are learning who listens to our podcast and who doesn't listen to our podcast. Well, not who doesn't, but so we've discovered we've made some really great friends over the years. Some other people, like a gentleman who has been nothing but lovely to us and has become, I would call, a very awesome friend, is Cameron Cuff. If you don't know who Cameron Cuff is, he is the star. He's the lead of Krypton. He plays Superman's grandfather.
Yeah.
He is an L. He's a very super awesome nerd. I met him at San Diego Comic-Con, whatever. And every once in a while, he will text me about something we say on this podcast. So Cameron listens to the show.
Hi, Cameron.
Hello, Cameron. Hello, Superman's grandfather. And another person that is really cool is we became friends with actor extraordinaire Ryan Sands, who plays Jeffrey Wilder on Runaways. And he as well was just like, I remember once we were just hanging out and he made a joke about your dislike of Flashpoint.
I said to him, because I was attempting to explain, I was like, I hate Flashpoint. And he was like, oh, I know. And I was like, oh, damn. How many mean things have I said about the Flash?
So it's interesting again. Well, it's also like, it's amazing to listen. One time when we our only trip to London together, we went to London and we got stopped by a Geek History Lesson fan on the streets
outside of
London.
Abbey Road, yeah.
Outside of Abbey Road.
At like 7 o'clock in the morning.
So it's amazing to me to think about how far and what nooks and crannies this podcast has got. Like I've noticed, like we have a lot of listeners in Mexico, which I was like, that's amazing.
I'm so sorry about all of our mispronunciation of Spanish names.
You know, but so that's a thing. Like 5 years ago, if you would have told me that we would be stopped by a random fan in London that listens to the show, I would have been like, you're crazy.
Yeah.
So that's there's another special moment that we should talk about. And that's a couple of listeners that we're going to directly shout out. Ashley, you want to handle that?
Yes, we have 2 great listeners who've also supported Geek History Lesson from the beginning or pretty close. I will take their last name off the air, but that's Chaim and his son Tobias. I think they first got into contact because Tobias dressed up as Nightcrawler for Halloween, and I've always expressed my love for Nightcrawler, and I've said that he won Halloween. They've suggested a whole bunch of our episodes, and we finally, through the amazingness of their generous donation to our Kickstarter for science, we got a chance to talk to them on Skype over the holiday season, and they were both so lovely and so sweet and gave us so many more great ideas for the podcast.
Yes. I just have to say this, like, this is the longest podcast I've ever done. Ashley, I've never crossed another 5-year podcast anniversary with anybody else. So,
I'm so honored. What do you give somebody traditionally for your 5-year podcast? A new microphone?
Oh, you should give
some XLR cable.
It should be a golden XLR cable.
Okay.
But I just want to really quickly, I want to say thank you to Ashley for agreeing to do this podcast with me in the first place. I know sometimes the research is heavy and sometimes we record a lot of episodes, but I want to say I really appreciate having you as a host. And I couldn't imagine doing this podcast. I guarantee you I would have quit this podcast if I did it with anybody else.
Well, I have no choice but to thank you back, because the podcast literally couldn't happen without you, because I have no idea how any of this works.
How the technical stuff works.
You are such an integral part. Jason puts
If I get sick, the podcast dies.
It dies, truly. I've, over the years, taken on more responsibility, but Jason is truly the only reason this was possible. So please shower him with love and affection, because I don't know if I can express it adequately.
You're welcome. I also want to say really quickly, thank you to everybody who listens to this podcast.
Yes.
If you are listening to this podcast right now, if you listen to any podcast in the past, even if you're not listening to this right now, hello, future people. I just want to say thank you because, I say this online a lot, but I totally and truly mean this. I'm always blown away that anybody cares about anything that we do. Anything. The fact that you guys are into my love of Spider-Man 99, my pitches of writing Nightwing, my insanity love for Sue Storm, my incessant and bad Doctor Strange impressions. The fact that you guys enjoy that blows me away. So I need to thank you. I cannot thank you enough, basically, for allowing me to basically spout my thoughts about comic books into your ear holes, and you enjoy them.
Yes, and thank you every time you guys offer us your thoughts. People are generally very polite, even when they're correcting us or they want to bring something to our attention. I always appreciate everyone's feedback as long as it's done in a kind of constructive manner. And just because Jason and I have grown a lot over the course of doing this podcast as people, and we're going to continue to grow in the future. So thank you for supporting the growth of the show and the growth of us and all of the amazing changes that are coming, including the one that we're going to talk about.
Well, real quick before we get to that change, and again, it's a good change, I promise.
Yeah.
It's a really awesome change. I'm very excited change. I want to talk about, it's funny, we have had conversations before, and I think they were like 2 or 3 years ago. We've had conversations before about, there's going to be a certain day where we're going to just run out of characters. Like, we're going to run out of characters, and what do we do, and where do we go? And I'm going to tell you this, we're 5 years in, I don't see us running out of characters anytime soon.
Well, DC just keeps greenlighting shows.
yeah. Like, so I don't see this podcast ending anytime soon.
I hope not.
So that blows me away too, because I can remember, I think I can remember us actually having a conversation where we're like, what, we make this like 200 episodes, maybe? Like, we're going to run out of characters in 200 episodes.
I know, and here we are, and we haven't even done all the Avengers yet.
We haven't. I don't think we've done all the JLA, have we?
I don't. I think we're closer on the JLA than we are on
just because of
Avengers.
our DC favoritism.
Yeah.
Anyways, so here we are. The big announcement, and this is a thing that we're going to start doing every month in Geek History Lesson. This is an idea that we've had for a long time. I'm so excited. This is a way that we're going to get you guys into the podcast more, and it's going to be a thing that we can do together. So I thought the best way to celebrate our 5-year anniversary, Ashley, is with what?
It is with a book club.
Yeah, the Geek History Lesson Book Club.
Now I'm going to say, if you're a patron, you already know about this, which is a reason to support us on Patreon. Club. That's a shout out to one of our favorite podcasts to listen to. If you know what it is, leave us a comment, and maybe we'll send you something. So the book club is something that we've discussed. You might remember in our early days, we used to review books here and there.
Here and there, not with regularity.
No, not with any kind of regularity, and not in a way that allowed anyone to interact.
Yes.
And that's the coolest thing about the book club. So here is the big overview, and then we're going to get into specifics.
Good.
Every month, we're going to talk about a book.
Yes.
A graphic novel that we think it's important for you to read. Sometimes they're going to tie into cool pop culture things. Sometimes they're just great books to read.
Yeah, sometimes they're just going to be comic books that you should read.
They're staples, yeah. Sometimes we're going to have guests joining us. Sometimes we're not. We're going to let you know ahead of time what day the episode's going to come out. And if you support us on Patreon, even for $1, on the first of every month, I'm going to put up a post with a link announcing the book. You can go there and leave a comment, a question, a joke, and we will read it.
A topic of discussion.
We will read it on the podcast. We will shout you out on the podcast.
The best ones. Not all of them, because we're hoping that you guys just overwhelm us with comments. But the greatest thing about this is that if you are at any level of patreon.com/Jawiin support, you can leave a comment on this post. And again, we're going to record these episodes like right before we release them, just so we can get the max amount of comments. So if you guys have ever wanted this is the way your thoughts, your ideas, your direct questions to us can get on Geek History Lesson. We're going to shout you out on the podcast. But that way, so the book club becomes interactive. It becomes a real club. We get to hear what you guys think about this book, whether you hate this book, and vice versa.
Yeah. Because we, in this 5th year, we want to celebrate you, the audience, who's allowed us to make it to 5 years, as much as we want to pat ourselves on the back for surviving this long.
Well, and also it was a way I thought about to create basically another class. Like one of our fans said this comment, and I really appreciate it, said that they love that all of the stuff we do is about education and learning. And that's what I agree, because what's the point of regurgitating? At a certain point, reviews are not useful anymore. But if you can learn or have discussions or topics go deeper into these subjects, that's where the real, the juicy meat of Geek can come from. And that's what this book club is.
Yeah, exactly. So, shall we announce our first book?
Yes, please announce the first book. And then let them know all the details about how they can comment and when they can do it.
So as you all know, or maybe you don't, in America, February is Black History Month. Jason and I wanted to embrace that. That's something that we're also trying to embrace more in our episodes throughout the year, is our cultural celebrations. So we are going to review Black Masks Black Volume 1, which is an incredible comic book. If you need to know where to get your hands on a physical or digital copy, you go to geekhistorylesson.com, you click on book club, and we have a post that's up.
We should, that's a new thing. So on our website now, we have a new tab that's labeled Book Club. So if you ever want to know, what's the next book? When is it going to be published? How can I buy it? It's going to be on geekhistorylesson.com/book club.
Yes.
It's your one-stop information. Now, we're going to announce each of them in the episode, but that's your one-stop shop.
Yes. So at the end of our episode on Black, we will be announcing the topic of our next book club, and that's when the posts will go up and you'll be able to get your hands on it, just like you can for the recommended reading. Now, this month, it's going to be a little quicker to turn around just because it's the first month.
Yep.
So the episode on Black, our very first book club, is going to be coming out on February 26th. It's episode 244. So you have until, let's say, February 22nd, a few days before, to go over to Patreon, kick $1 or more. It depends on how much you think we're worth and what you can afford financially. We don't want anyone bringing the bank on our account. Go over there, throw some support our way, and leave a comment on our post.
Yeah, you don't have as much time with this one. You're going to have more time in the future. But yeah, you're going to have about, from the time you hear this recording, you're going to have about, I would say, 7 days to get your comment in.
Yeah.
So,
Black is a limited series. It's not super long.
It's available online.
And like I said, we have a link that will take you to both a physical and digital copy. Even if you just read the first issue and then leave your comment, we're here for it.
Yes. All right. So this is very cool. Book club.
Jesus.
That's going to happen. Everyone now.
So loud.
Book club. The Geek History Lesson book club is happening, and that is the change for Geek History Lesson in 2019.
That's right.
It's very exciting. There are all the details. And again, if you forgot these details, geekhistorylesson.com/book club. All right. Thank you so much for listening. Don't forget, everybody, this is the spiel. You can subscribe to Geek History Lesson on everywhere you can listen to podcasts. That is on iTunes, Apple Podcasts, Stitcher, Spotify, iHeartRadio, all those places. Don't forget to support us on patreon.com/Jawiin. That's where you can get your comments in on book club. And also, our Geek History Lesson Extra this week is going to be more with my mom.
Oh, it's good. I love that episode.
It's more with my mom. Don't forget, you can follow this podcast on Twitter at GHL Podcast. You can follow Ashley on Twitter at Ashley V. Robinson. And you can follow me on Twitter at Jawiin. And Ashley, if they want to suggest future episodes, where can they do that?
If you want to suggest future episodes, you can do that at facebook.com/geekhistorylesson, geekhistorylesson.com, or on Twitter at GHL Podcast.
Hashtag stick around, the part where we do the very end. Ashley, real quick, if there is one moment of my insanity that really stands out to you, all these weird impressions, Tex Willerman, Peter Parker's biggest enemy is poverty. What stands out to you? Like, what is out of 5 years Geek History Lesson? What's the thing that really you're just like, when I think about Geek History Lesson and Jason's insanity, this is what I think.
Poverty stands out to me because I was so mad when you said it the first time.
Why?
Because I thought that you were being really serious, and then you just undercut it. So it's very funny. But in the moment, I remember you said that, and I just wanted to be like, I'm going to flip this table.
That's from our Peter Parker episode.
Ages and Ages. Was that our first two-parter?
Yes, I believe it was.
So I also remember you being like, it has to be 2 parts. And I was like, well, that's insane. Nothing needs to be 2 parts.
I remember you telling me that. And I remember going insane, being like, I can't cut it all.
Yeah, these are the growing pains. Is there a moment that stands out for you?
Oh, man, I don't know. I mean, Tex Willerman's a big one, just because I cannot believe it. You know what? Doctor Strange. The fact that Doctor Strange was just an aside, and he has now become, I think, almost integral to this podcast. Like, we now cannot do this podcast without Doctor Strange popping in.
We made a t-shirt design.
We made a t-shirt design about it. Like, that's the thing for me, is like, Doctor Strange will not die.
Yeah. I'm shocked. Sometimes I'm shocked.
I don't want him to, by the way.
Sometimes I'm shocked by what people really like. People really liked drunk Hal Jordan, I'm a pilot.
Oh, yeah.
And I thought we were real mean on that episode.
What? I'll tell you this. For an episode about for a podcast about education, that's the thing that surprises me, is that people love our goofy asides. Like, I appreciate that. Then that people, and there are those people that are like, this is stupid, but the majority of people are very positive about it. And you know what? This podcast for me has always been about fun. Mm-hmm. That's why I do it with Ashley, because she's very fun. And
7.5 out of 10.
Wow. Okay, Ashley's judging her fun reader.
It's a Scott Pilgrim joke.
I know. But anyways, this podcast is about fun. So those little impressions for me are about fun, and education and learning should be about fun. So thank you for the journey. Come join us on book club. This has been it for Geek History Lesson. I am Jason, Dr. Strange Inman.
I am Ashley Victoria Robinson, and Professor Jason, will you send off the class and we won't talk to them again for 10 years?
We won't what?
Or for 5 years.
What?
I don't know.
Oh, okay.
On our next anniversary.
Class is dismissed. Don't forget to pick up the book. We'll see you later. Book club!
Jesus.